What are you, an intellectual or an intelligent person? This question you should ask yourself, because the answer that you get is what going to decide the future course of your life. Intellectuality and intelligence are two different subjects. These two are polarities that never can be on the same plane. So either you are intellectual or either you are an intelligent person. Intellectuality is of your mind, your brain. Intelligence is of your heart. Rahu makes you more and more intellectual, and that is one reason why Rahu exalts in intellectual sign of Gemini and also does well in intellectual sign of Libra. If you talk about Ketu, then Ketu is the energy that helps you to drop the mind. Ketu is the energy that helps you to move beyond the mind. And that is the reason why Ketu is an integral part of an horoscope when it comes to intelligence. An intelligent man always has his Ketu in a prominent position. You can say he is Ketuish because unless Ketu energy is powerful, the mind and the brain and the intellectualism cannot be dropped. So you need someone like Diogenes, you need someone like Peter the fisherman. Or in the Indian context, if I have to say, then you need someone like Arjuna. Because all of these great men, they simply jumped into the unknown. They simply followed the word of the master. And you will be able to follow the word of the master only when you are able to move beyond the mind, when you are able to drop all your intellectuality, all your learning, all your scholarships. And that is why in this human world we have Rahuish people in majority, because it is not so easy to drop all of this, because right from the beginning you are being taught in the school and in the college that you need to learn more and more and more. You need to gather the knowledge of the whole world. And then a day comes when you realize the truth that it is only when you unlearn that you can find the divine. And so it is not easy for everybody, you see. So we have to accept the fact that most of them are intellectual beings and there are very few intelligent men and women. And the most interesting part is this, that these intelligent men and women are often condemned in the beginning. They are often opposed by the society because what they say cannot be realized by those who are still trapped in their mind and in their logics and in their intellectualism. Intellectuality makes it difficult and difficult. You will never be able to find the way if you are a philosopher or an intellectual. You can only find the way if you are simply following the voice of your heart, if you are simply turning inwards. Bhagavan Raman Maharshi says, self-knowledge is an easy thing. It is already there. It has always been there. Just a look, a turning inwards, and you are no more a beggar, and you have attained emperorhood, and you are enthroned, and you are crowned, and you are a king. Just a look within, and your life starts changing for good. And that is what the Sufis say. One who is fed up with philosophies and has started searching for the real thing, one who is not satisfied with the synthetic food but in search and is searching for the real nourishment, is a Sufi. Sufism, in its widest definition, is not a religion but a way of life. Spirituality has nothing to do with religion. Always remember this. In fact, whenever I meet a very religious man, I am very cautious because he will not understand a single word that I will speak. Spiritualism and religious people, these are two ends that can never meet. You are either a religious man or you are either a spiritual man. You are either a Rahuish or you are either a Ketuish. You are either an intellectual person or you are an intelligent person. So you see, you have to see, only then you will realize religion limits you, spirituality sets you free. In that sense, every spiritual master is a Sufi. Rabia of Basra was one such great Sufi saint. She was born between 714 to 718 CE in the town of Basra, that is almost before Jesus Christ, you can see. She is therefore known as Rabia of Basra, and in some parts of the world, she is also known as Hazrat Bibi Rabia Basri or simply Rabia Basra. She is one of the greatest Sufi mystics and poets. She was the fourth daughter of her family and therefore named Rabia, means fourth. When Rabia was born, her parents were so poor that there was no oil in the house to light a lamp, nor even a cloth to wrap her with. Her mother asked her husband to borrow some oil from a neighbor, but he had resolved in his life never to ask for anything from anyone except God. He pretended to go to the neighbor's door and returned home empty-handed. And at that night the prophet appeared to him in a dream and told him, "Your newly born daughter is a favorite of the Lord and shall lead many people to the right path. You should approach the Amir of Basra and present him with a letter in which should be written the message, and the message should be this: you offer durud to the Holy Prophet 100 times every night and 400 times every Thursday night. However, since you failed to observe the rule last Thursday, as a penalty you must pay the bearer 400 dinars." When the Amir, that is the chief of town, read the letter, his eyes were filled with tears. He started crying because it was only the Prophet who knew about his offerings. He knelt down and prayed, and then with much love and faith, he offered Rabia's father 400 dinars. When someone as divine as Rabia takes birth, how can she let her family suffer from poverty? Through her divine intervention, her family received 400 dinars. Birth of each rainbow begins with millions of tiny droplets. Likewise, with Rabia's birth, prosperity was showered upon her family. After many years, when her father died, she parted with her sisters and went into the desert to pray, and later she became a great Sufi saint. She rose to such an enlightened stage that she is often called the Queen of Saintly Women. The stories of her miracles reached across the towns and villages of Iraq and many neighboring countries. Kings and queens would come to seek her blessings. People would seek her divine intervention. Rabia became one of the greatest Sufi saints of her time. She was known for her complete devotion, for her pure love of God. Her poems touched millions of hearts. One such beautiful poem of hers helps us to understand the depth of her spiritual enlightenment. She writes, "If I worship you, O Lord, if I worship you because of fear of hell, then burn me in hell. If I worship you because I desire paradise, then exclude me from paradise. But if I worship you for yourself alone, then deny me not your eternal beauty." How deep is this poem? It simply would touch your heart if you could feel the depth of the poem. Rabia, through the poem, beautifully depicts the very source of pure love. Love for the Lord is not something that should come out of fear or for any rewards, but simply out of selflessness. Through this gem of a poem, Sufi Saint Rabia of Basra prays to the Lord that she should be accepted in His kingdom only if her prayers are selfless, only if her prayers are not seeking any rewards, or only if her prayers are not out of fear. How to express the depth of this poem? It is beyond the power of words. There are some things that the mind can never explain. Your heart knows things that your mind can't explain. The whole town of Basra was blessed by the presence of Sufi Saint Rabia. In this town lived a young man, and his name was Hassan. Hassan was devoted to God. Every day he would sit in the mosque and pray. He would say, "God, please open the door. I have been waiting for long. Please open the door. How many tests you want me to go through? Is it not enough? Open the door. I am weeping. I am crying. Don't test me so much that I die at your closed door. Please show mercy. God, please open the door." That was his prayer. And every day he would pray in the same way. He would say, "God, please open the door. Please accept me in your kingdom. Please open the door." One evening, he was praying on the street, engrossed in his daily prayers, and Rabia heard him praying. He was saying the same thing again and again. "God, please open the door. How many tests you want me to go through in this life? Isn't it enough? God, please open the door." Rabia laughed out loudly, and she hit him softly on his head and said, "What nonsense are you talking about? The door is open, but you are so much engrossed in your nonsense that you couldn't see that the door is open. It has always been open." What a beautiful message, and so true. The reason you don't see the door open is that you are so much engrossed in the I that your miseries are entangled around the I. The moment you drop the I, the open door would be visible. Rabia could see the open door because her prayer was simple. She says, I don't want any rewards. I don't pray due to my fears. I simply pray to you, God, out of love. I don't want anything but your eternal love. I want to become one with you, dissolve myself totally in your divine light. When I is dissolved, the open door is visible. The universe is open. It is you who have blocked yourself by entrapping yourself in the I. Else, the universe, the door has always been open. Swami Beyondananda, he was a meditative being. He says, if you are looking to find the key to the universe, I have some bad news and some good news. The bad news is there is no key to the universe. The good news is it is not locked. So you should understand that everything is an open secret. Life is an open secret. This whole universe is an open secret. All you need is eyes to see. But how will you be able to see? And the answer is when your mind will become still. The mind is constantly wandering. Now it is here, the next second it will be somewhere else. The mind is like a monkey, it is never still. Hassan loved God. He was a faithful devotee. He never missed his prayers, but what he missed was to realize the truth that unless and until he controls and overcomes his mind, unless he makes his mind still, he cannot see the open door. But how can he still the mind? He can still the mind only when he has surrendered in totality. The moment he dissolves the I, he would be able to still the mind. Then the mind would become his slave, and then there is a song to it. Then there is every possibility to go inward and explore the open universe and its indefinite treasures. The key is in surrendering, because it is only when you surrender yourself to God that all your ego is dissolved, and then you are able to see through yourself. Then you are able to meditate in the real sense. Nothing is powerful than a surrendered life in the hands of God. And always remember, real meditation happens only through total surrender. And that is why all religions simply encourage you to surrender to God. And you will be able to live in total surrender to God only when you are no more clinging to things, no more attached but detached. Detachment enables you to still the mind. Detachment is not that you should own nothing, but nothing should own you. In my last podcast, I had mentioned about purifying the mind, and today I want to specifically mention a quote of Swami Vivekananda in which he says, whose meditation is real and effective? Who can really surrender to the will of God? Asks Swami Vivekananda. And then he himself answers, only the person whose mind has been purified by selfless work. So you see, You see, we were talking about ego, dropping the ego, because only then you will be able to serve selflessly. And the more selfless you become, the more it becomes easier for you to purify the mind. But the problem with Hassan is this, that Hassan is obsessed with his mind. You see? And so all the troubles and miseries of life are of the mind. If you become the mind, you are going to feel the heat. You are going to suffer. Someone asked why life is more of miseries and less of happiness. And the answer is, it is your mind that has separated the outside world from the inside world and put them in opposition. This creates fear and hatred and all the miseries of living. You have to get out of your head and get inside your heart. It is only through the heart that you can overcome the mind, body difference and experience oneness. As long as the mind is in play, you can never experience oneness. You will always remain in the state of duality. That is Dvait. Dvait is duality. Duality means you think that you are different from the other person. And non-duality or oneness means now you realize that there is no other. Once it happened, somebody asked Bhagwan Raman Maharshi, how would you treat others? And the Bhagwan answered, there are no others. A yogi lives in a non-duality state. So for a yogi, there is no other. Everything is one. But for those who are still to reach to the stage of yogi, they believe that they are different from the others. Always remember, there is only one of the two that can reside in our hearts, God or ego. If God is in, ego is out. And then there is a song to it. Then there is every possibility for you to experience happiness, joy, and peace in your life. Beyond the realms of logic is a wonderful world that can bring bundle of joy in your life. It is not on the outside, but very much within you. All you need is to turn inwards. Inwardness is your nature. Move back to your nature and you will be showered with abundance of joy and happiness. Before going anywhere else, you should go inwards, into your own being. And that is not what people want to do, you see. And this whole world is filled up with majority of shallow people who don't want to do anything on their own. They want shortcuts. They want to go to someone else. And that is why we have more Masihas. Because it is these people who make them Masihas. Because they don't want to do anything on their own, so they go to these people. And this is how the vicious cycle is born. Always remember, a seeker is someone who can experience God, who can find God. A believer cannot find God because a believer doesn't want to do anything on his own. A believer just wants to believe. A seeker wants to experience everything on his own, through his own efforts, through his own initiatives. Once it happened, a man came and asked Buddha, "Is there God?" Buddha said, "No, there is no God." Then on the same day, in the afternoon, another man came. He asked the same question, "Is there God?" Buddha said, "Yes, there is God." In the evening, a third person came and he said, "There are people who believe in God and there are people who don't believe in God. But I want to know whether there is God. So show me a way through which I myself can seek God, can experience God." And to this, the Buddha did not answer in words. He simply sat down and went into meditation. The man thought that that must be the answer, so he too sat down and he started meditating. And after 15 minutes, the man opened his eyes. He went to Buddha, touched the feet of the master, and said, "You have given me the real answer. How compassionate you are, and I will be thankful to you for my whole life." And then he lives happily. And the moment he leaves, the moment he goes back, Ananda comes and asks Buddha that, "What is this? I don't understand. Because in the morning the man comes and you tell him there is no God. In the afternoon another man comes and you tell him there is God. And now when this man came in the evening, you did not even answer him in words. You simply sat down in meditation. I don't understand your answers. Please help me. Please explain me." And Buddha smiled and said, "Ananda, the man who came in the morning and the man who came in the afternoon, they just wanted to know. They were not seekers. But the third man who came in the evening, he was a seeker. And I am looking for seekers and not believers. Because a believer is not willing to do anything on his own. He wants the other person to chew, but then, if I chew for you, how come your stomach is going to fill up? But a believer never wants to do anything on his own. And so, I am not looking for believers. I am looking for seekers. And so, you all should not just believe, but seek the truth through your own experiences, through your own efforts. And your efforts will fructify only when you go beyond logic, because it is only when you go beyond logic that you can discover the oasis of true love. You can discover the oasis of the ultimate truth, the ultimate God consciousness. Meditate.